We are alive. Yay. Hello.
Wonderful. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Friends in Fiction Official Book Club. We're so excited to have Jasmine Guillory here to talk about The Wedding Date. I'm Brenda Gardner in South Carolina, and I'm joined by my co-host Lisa in Atlanta.
Hi, everyone.
And best of all, we have Jasmine Guillory here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you.
We are so excited that you joined us. We've been looking forward to this all month.
Hey, thank you.
I know we so have. But before I do the formal introduction for Jasmine, I want to say welcome to our book club members and be sure to put your questions for her in the chat. We will be pulling some of those live tonight. And as always, we will keep it spoiler free until we give you the spoiler alert around 7:25 or so. And along the way tonight, we're going to have questions for book club members to answer too. So really looking forward to it tonight. But for now, I'd love to introduce Jasmine. She is a lawyer as well as a New York Times bestselling author of 6 romance novels, including The Wedding Date, The Proposal, and While We Were Dating. Her work has appeared in O, the Oprah magazine, Cosmopolitan, Bon Appetit, and Time. Jasmine is a graduate of Wellesley College and Stanford Law School. So impressive. And lives in Oakland, California. Now, according to Goodreads, she also lives with a towering stack of books in her living room. A cake recipe for every
Honestly, that's an old bio. It's definitely more than one towering stack of books in my living room.
Okay, many towering stacks of books in her living room, a cake recipe for every occasion, and upwards of 50 lipsticks. So Jasmine, welcome today.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. You'll have to forgive me if I'm a little rusty talking about this book. It's been a while since I've gotten to talk about The Wedding Date, so this will be fun for me.
Oh, wonderful. Well, if you don't mind, this is probably a good time to ask if you would just give us a quick summary for those book club members who are listening just until the spoiler alert of the synopsis.
Sure. So The Wedding Date is about Alexa and Drew. Alexa is works for the mayor of Berkeley. She's his chief of staff. Drew is a doctor in Los Angeles, and they meet when they get stuck in an elevator together. Drew is in San Francisco for his ex-girlfriend's wedding, and he convinces Alexa to be his date to the wedding. His date had pulled out right before he had to leave, and so the rest is them finding their way to each other for more than just pretending that they're dating.
That's fabulous, and they of course had many obstacles along the way for sure. Well, I'm curious. The book starts with Alexa being trapped in the elevator with the hot guy, Drew. We were curious, what was your inspiration for that? And have you ever been trapped in an elevator?
I have never been trapped in an elevator. Part of my inspiration for this actually was the hotel that they're at when they get stuck in the elevator. One of my friends went to a wedding at that hotel probably about a year before I started writing The Wedding Date. And for some reason, it sort of like stuck in my mind. I kept sort of thinking about it. And my mom, it's funny because my mom is claustrophobic and has gotten trapped in the elevator like multiple times. And so that has always kind of gone around in my brain. And then I kind of thought like, and the funny thing is, when I first thought about it, I kind of thought, oh, he'll convince her to be his date to the wedding. And then as I started writing kind of more and more of the details of them and their relationship, like I at first I hadn't thought like, why would he want a date to the wedding? Oh, it's his ex-girlfriend's wedding. Okay. And so some of those details really came to me.
Oh my goodness, that's fabulous. We wanted to ask our book club members too. You tell us your elevator stories in the chat. Bonus points if you've ever been trapped with a hot guy like you do.
It was funny actually because right after I had a event for The Wedding Date, I was with a friend of mine in a parking garage, and we were going back to her car, and like the elevator like stopped for a second, and I was like, oh no, like I know. But
I got stuck in an elevator once and it completely freaked me out. I was downtown Atlanta and I was on my way to go up to the radio station because I won concert tickets to see Justin Timberlake. And I was halfway up the elevator and it stopped. And I was like, no, not now. Please let me get my tickets first. Because like you had to pick your tickets up by 5 and I'm always late. So it was like 4:48 and I'm like, no. And I was only stuck for like 3 minutes, but it felt like
Probably an eternity.
yeah.
Well, surely that would be a good excuse for getting the concert tickets late.
Yeah.
And also all of the times that my mom got stuck in elevators, it was like before the cell phone era. So she was just like, how do you're dialing that phone that's inside the elevator, right?
Yeah, that makes it a whole different scenario, I must say, if you don't have anything with you, like a cell phone. Yeah, indeed.
Well, we do have a book club member. Debbie said that she and her husband got stuck in an elevator on their way down to catch an Uber for a plane flight.
Oh no.
So hopefully she caught her flight.
Yeah, hopefully she caught her flight.
And her husband, I guess, is the hot guy. So that's good for
there
her.
you go.
There you go.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, Jasmine, we picked the wedding date for our book club this month because it was the first in your series, of course, and you had several books in that series, but your most recent one, While We Were Dating, was written during the pandemic. Did you find the writing process different during that time, and was it easier or harder to write at that time?
Really different. I mean, because it's weird because I'd worked from home before. I'd mostly written from home. You would think that it wouldn't change things, but it totally changed everything. I mean, most of the time I would like either there was travel or I would go to cafes to write or like have writing dates with friends. And for that, like, especially those first like 6 months, which is the time that I was mostly writing while we were dating, we couldn't do any of that. And actually it was like, I had planned to start like outlining. I had kind of a general idea for While We Were Dating in my head. And I planned to start outlining it in March of 2020. I was the writer in residence at a writing retreat, like the, second, third week of March. And the day we got to the writing retreat was like that day that the world all fell apart. Like we're all sitting at dinner, like drinking wine, talking, and someone looks at their phone and it's like, the NBA just stopped in the middle of the game. Broadway just shut down. Like Tom Hanks has coronavirus. Like, it was all of that, like all at once. And I couldn't do anything that weekend. Like I was basically, constantly scrolling on my phone. I forced myself to like do some stream of consciousness journaling about like ideas I had for the book. And I did get a good idea for the book from that. But like, there was like 6 weeks where, and I planned to start writing it on April 1st. I like set deadlines for myself to start things because it just sort of forced myself into it. And I couldn't start writing that. I mean, I think I at least was totally stuck. I had no idea kind of what anything was happening, what the future was. And especially to start writing a new book, like it would sort of be one thing if I was like, keep going on a book, but like, start writing a new book, it felt impossible. And then I wrote this book in a very different way than I had written my previous books. I hand wrote the whole thing, the whole first draft, which is just ridiculous. Like my wrist hurt so much. I wrote much slower, at least at first, I wrote much slower than I usually do. But it was sort of a way to kind of trick myself into doing it. Like, because at first I was like, it just felt scary to think about like writing a whole book during a pandemic, like to open my laptop and open a Word document. Like, it was like, I'm just writing this thing in a notebook. This was just for me. I was mostly writing late at night. Like I was all shifted in time. And so eventually I got to a point where I was like, okay, fine, this is going to be a book. I should start typing it in. so I'm like writing and then also typing like the old stuff. I only really caught up with the writing and typing like towards the end. But yeah, it was a very weird experience. And I mean, there was definitely a certain point where like writing while we were dating was really kind of the thing that kept me going. You know, it was like I would wake up in the morning and think like, okay, I get to work on my book today. Like that was really the only thing I had to look forward to in some of those hardest months early in the pandemic. And so it was definitely a very different way of writing than I had before.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. I have a question that I have been chomping at the bit to ask you, because this moment, I'm a huge Jeopardy fan. And I remember when I was watching Jeopardy and this moment happened. Let me share this here. Where were you when you found out that you were a Jeopardy question?
Okay, so I remember exactly.
And how did you feel? I freaked out.
I freaked out.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
It's funny because I was like sitting down and I was about to start writing. And usually when I am in the midst of like writing, I turn do not disturb on my phone. And so I've been, you know, I always have to sort of talk myself into writing every single day. And so I was like, all right, I'll do this. And I like was reaching for my phone to turn off. And then I got a text from my best friend who saw it and took this picture. And I was like, and the thing is, if it hadn't been from her, I absolutely would have thought someone was playing a prank on me. Like, I would have been like, yeah, that's funny. That's cute. Like, what do you know? I'm not, my name is not actually on Jeopardy. But I was like, what? Like, yeah, it was wild.
I was so excited.
I had no idea it was going to happen. Yeah.
Oh, so that was going to be my next question. Do you have any idea? Oh, that's so
not
cool.
In the slightest. Yeah.
That is so cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That is pretty neat. Well, we promise we're going to get into some specific questions about the wedding date, but I did want to ask you one kind of thing mostly about the series. You know, the romance genre doesn't always get a lot of love, pardon the pun, but with the success of Bridgerton and some other things, it seems like the tide's turning. In fact, we noticed that Hello Sunshine, Reese Witherspoon's production company, has optioned the rights to the first 4 of your books. So the wedding date, the proposal, the wedding party, and royal holiday. So we like scoops here on the book club. Can you give us an update?
I have no updates. I wish I did, but let's all keep our fingers crossed. That would be great to see any of my books make the big or small screen.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great segue to one of our advanced questions. Our book club member, Amber Prater, wants to know, if you could dream cast Olivia and Drew, who would you choose to play them? And who would you cast as Carlos?
Oh,
that's my book boyfriend.
What's funny is I never have great answers for like the Dreamcast questions, mostly because I have a very specific vision in my mind of who the characters are, but they aren't like actual people. And so sometimes I will like ask my friends, like, what do you think of this? And then they will say something and I'll look up and like, yeah, that looks right to me. But I'm never really good at like envisioning people because in my mind they just look like Alexa.
Right.
You know, I do think Chris Evans would be a perfect Drew. Many people have suggested him to me, so I think he would be great.
He would.
Look at Lisa. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, he would. Well, it's hard. Like, I was trying to think about Carlos, because one of the things I was going to share with you was when I read the proposal, Carlos is like the ultimate book boyfriend. I'm like, where is Carlos? Are there men like this that are real? Can I find a Carlos as a single lady? Carlos, if you're alive and real, give me a call. And I kept thinking in my head, I don't know who I would cast or I would want to see play Carlos. He's just like Carlos.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. And also, because I've kind of thought, like, I kind of looked up people who might, but everyone is either like either not the right age or like not the right something is a little. I mean, look, if somebody got cast to play Carlos, I would love them and be very excited.
Yeah.
But I can never picture just the right person.
You know, as a reader, I always have trouble with that. Like the book, when I read it, it's never the person I imagine.
Yeah.
So I can only think how hard that would be for an author who has, you know, created this person, and then to have to choose a real person. Well, you, in a lot of cases, you don't choose really,
Yeah.
but, you know, to imagine that real person.
Yeah, no, it's always challenging when I try to think of that.
Well, April in the chat says she'd like to see Enrique Iglesias as Carlos.
Oh, that would be fun.
Woohoo.
And we've got Crisp. Oh, goodness. The chat's blowing up.
They all have ideas.
You can go back later, Jasmine, if you want to see some of these responses, because yeah, it's a big conversation now. A lot of ideas.
Yeah, readers always have much better ideas than I do for things like that.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, one of the things, we will take some questions from the chat too, but one of the things Lisa and I wanted to ask you about was the way in this book that's so amazing. It has such honest discussions of race and relationships. Was it one of you? Oh, and I'm sorry, this is a question from Kathy Jackson Moore and from our advanced question. Was it one of your goals for this book to be a vehicle for that kind of discussion?
Not exactly, but I wanted their conversations to feel real. Like I wanted their conversations to feel like conversations I've had with my friends or people I've been dating, or, you know, other like conversations in the workplace. I think when you're getting close to people, that's when you start like having the real, not exactly difficult conversations, but conversations about topics that you don't talk to sort of about people just on the surface, right? And so I wanted them to have those conversations that made them, and also that made them like get closer to one another, that made them recognize like this is someone I care about and that cares about me, and that we can like really get into topics like this. And so I'm really glad that you know, people have resonated, those conversations have resonated with readers, and that they have gone on to like have conversations like that. But I just wanted to make them feel real to me.
Well, they certainly did. I can tell you, when, as I was reading, and just, you know, the thing, I don't know, there were just some small things in there that I went, oh, okay. Yeah, you would think about that. And it really does open your eyes. Lisa, were you going, did I cut you off?
Oh, no, I was just going to say you did such a great job, because I felt like, for me, I felt so like Alexa was so relatable to me. Like there were so many things about her that I was like, that's me. I would do the same thing. That's how I am. Some of her insecurities and the conversations, and just some of the subtle racism that people might not know about or even think about. Like one thing that stuck out to me was when she asked Drew, am I going to be the only Black person in this wedding? And I thought, I can't tell you how many times I've had that conversation with people, and they have the same, they don't think about it because it's not something they would have to think about. And then they have the same type of reaction, like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Or you have to think about that. It's like, that's something that we think about on a daily basis. It's just something that we live with. And then there were just so many, I loved this book.
And I
so
think,
much.
you know, one of the things that made me write that moment is I was once out to dinner with one of my best friends who's a white woman, and she looked around, and we've known each other for a very long time, and she looked around the restaurant and said, like, you're the only Black person in this restaurant. And I said, this is the first time that a white person has ever noticed that. Like, I always notice it, but this is the first time that a white person ever noticed. So thank you. And that's one thing, like, this is why we've been best friends for 20 years, you know,
Yeah.
because she like looks and pays attention to that. But also, I mean, I think if we hadn't been best friends for 20 years, she may not have, right? And so that is those sort of things that you notice and conversations that you have when you have those kinds of relationships.
Yeah. And by including it in this book, it opened the eyes for people who might not have those conversations to think about things like that they just might not think about, or they don't really have to face. So I just thought that really stood out. And Alexa overall, I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh,
I felt like it was me. I felt like it was me.
Well, when I read it, I thought Alexa reminded me of Lisa.
Thank you. That's one of our other book club members said that too. And I was like, before I read it, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to pay attention. I was like, insecurities are the same. I'm short. I'm plus size. I mean, a lot of the things when she was dating and the communication, being afraid to express her feelings.
Oh, I thought it was more the bubbly personality and reaching out to people, but okay.
It was funny because I remember when I was like in the midst of writing this book, I think I had, just finished or something. And I was talking to a male friend of mine who was like in the midst of a long distance relationship. And I told him something about the book and how, there was long distance relationship in it. And he was like, is there a fight over text that is just because like someone said the slightly wrong thing? And I was like, yes, there is. As a matter of fact. He was like, yeah, this is what happened.
Oh, that's
so
funny.
real.
And texting, of course, the whole texting exchange was a minefield for Alexa and Drew. And I guess I shouldn't have brought that up because it's not spoiler time yet, so I won't go into that detail.
But also that's
okay.
That's relatively early in the book, so.
Yeah, that's early on. I think that's fine. Just to toggle back on the back end of the race discussion, we had a question that we were going to ask our book club members. Have you ever observed racist behavior in your life? And if so, how were you affected by it? And how did it cause you to act or react or not? So if you want to share some of those in the chat, we can pull them. But for Jasmine, we wanted to ask, why do you think it's important to portray interracial relationships or interracial couples or relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's just like, that's the world around us, right? I think, in writing this book, I wanted the relationships, both, romantic and family and friends, to feel like the world that I see around me. And so those, I see all sorts of relationships between people of different races, sometimes like white or black, but sometimes like in the proposal, they're like Black and Latino or all sorts of different things. I mean, I see that all the time. I mean, I grew up in California and that's sort of the world I see. And so I wanted those friendships and family and relationships to feel like you're kind of put down in my neighborhood and like kind of see the people who I live with.
And I also want to say your characters are so relatable. Like Maddie, Theo, of course, Alexa, Drew, Carlos. How do you come up with the different characters? Do you pull from people that you know in real life? Because I feel like each one of your characters in this book could have had their own, well, I don't know. I don't want to spoil things later on.
It's 7:24. We could call the.
Well, no, I mean later on, like outside of this book, further down the line. But they're all people that we would want to be friends with or would want to date. And it's like, do you pull these characters from people that you know? Or how do you get the inspiration for these characters?
It's a real variety of things. I think sometimes it's not that I pull a character from someone I know. It's that like I pull some aspect of a personality of someone I know and think and kind of create a character around them. So they're usually nothing like, the character is usually nothing like that person that I thought of, right? Like when I was writing Theo, I thought a lot about one of my best friends who's a man, and the relationship that we have. And like, he's nothing like Theo, the relationship that Alexa and I'm not a lot like Alexa, but the relationship between Alexa and Theo is a lot like our relationship. So it was like things like that I kind of thought about the relationship, and then thought of sort of characters that would fit. And, I thought of small things about them and kind of wrote my way into it, because I think a lot of times, when I start writing, I will usually have a outline and, think of like certain things that will happen. But then once I start writing is when I really figure out the characters. And so then I think, well, but they wouldn't do this, and then I have to really think about the book and the characters and who they are in relationship to one another in the world. And so that really changes things. But it's often usually like, kind of a spark of an idea, or in talking about the proposal, like I kind of thought about and kind of had the idea for Nick because I had the idea for the proposal. And then I thought, like, what kind of person would do that? And then kind of I thought of her. And so it's a lot of times it's little things like that.
Oh, that's fabulous. I'm sure sometimes people see themselves in characters when they're not actually there too, like people
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
Mary
sure
Beth says, I would love to be friends with all of these characters.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice. We had another question from Kathy Johnson Moore, and I was curious about this too when reading the book. And this is sort of, I'm going to go ahead and say spoiler alert. At this point,
Yeah,
we'll be talking
it's
about
spoiler
the
time
of the book. So if you're haven't read it yet, it's time to turn the volume down. But Alexa has a program that's really close to her heart, the TART program. And it has a big impact on her relationship with Drew. And so I was wondering, and Kathy was wondering as well, is that a program that you created, or is that something that you actually had involvement in?
Not exactly, but it's funny, while I was working on the book, I was also working with an organization that does a lot of work with kids and teenagers in California. And so a lot of like the work and the research that I did kind of made me think of that. So it wasn't necessarily based on any specific actual program, but based on like a lot of programs that I like researched and thought about and paid attention to. And so a lot of that kind of played a role in writing this book.
I love the way the commitment that she had to this program was such an integral part of the book. And that seemed like true to her position. I'm not sure exactly how to say it, but having been involved in local government before, I could see that definitely being, coming into play. And I'm not sure how much research you had to do, but it really rang true.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so glad.
So here's a kind of a lighter question from Meredith Anna. And then I'm going to turn it over to Lisa to ask for something from the chat.
Yeah.
So if we were going to California, she wants to know, what taco place and donut place would we need to go?
Oh, these are great questions.
Let me get my notes ready.
Yeah. There's so many good taco places in LA. It's funny because I live in the Bay Area, and so I know a lot of taco places in Oakland and the surrounding areas. LA I don't know as well. I just like when I go with friends and then like I discover places and I eat there and they're delicious and I never remember the names, and I'm like, remember that place where we had these tacos? And they're like, yeah. So LA I would not be able to tell you. I need to like ask all of my friends where they took me and then come up with a list. But Oakland, there are a lot of great places, including really good taco trucks that are all around Oakland.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that sounds awesome. Her secondary question was, were a lot of donuts and tacos consumed during the writing process?
Definitely a lot of tacos, fewer donuts, because it is funny that I am I am much more of a savory person than a sweet person. So Alexa has a big sweet tooth. I do not, but it was fun to think of all of the things that you love to eat. And I love to bake. So like I have all of that stuff in my head. I just don't I just like to bake a lot more than I like to eat the things I've baked.
Oh, that's funny. That sadly, I like the eating part.
Me
Especially
too.
If you were my
donuts.
neighbor, I would bring you a lot of snacks.
I love savory, I love sweet. Just to piggyback off that, because we mentioned earlier you have a cake recipe for everything and you like to bake. Have you ever considered doing a cookbook?
You know, I think like that would be because I love kind of following recipes and then thinking of other things, but you have to do so much testing and like thinking about, I mean, I like think people who write cookbooks are superstars because I've kind of seen a lot of the background testing that goes into that and like all of the picture taking, it's amazing. I don't know if I could do it, but I love watching them.
Well, I have a question from the chat. Irene Justice would like to know, how did you learn to write a full novel? Was it certain writing books or did you attend any writing workshops?
I've taken no writing workshops. I just, so I didn't start writing until I think there are a lot of people who were like, I kind of started writing when I was 7 years old and I've done it my whole life. And that was not my path. Like I didn't start writing until well after I graduated from law school. And I think I started writing mostly because I wanted a creative outlet. Like I felt kind of stuck in the job that I was in. I wanted to learn something new. I kind of missed the experience of being in school and learning new things. And so I kind of thought, I've always loved to read. Maybe I would like writing. And a lot of people will like kind of start with a short story or something. No, I just kind of dove into writing novel. The Wedding Date was not the first one that I wrote. I wrote kind of 1.5 books before this. But I think a lot of it was, I definitely read a lot of craft books, but I didn't really read them before because I kind of knew if I give myself the stack of homework, I'm never going to start, right? And so I was like writing, but then also kind of reading craft books simultaneously, which is often what I still do. Like I still am constantly kind of reading craft books. There's certain that I reread kind of once a year or so, every time kind of I'm in the midst of a draft, and they always shake something loose. But I really kind of thought about, because I've read so much and I thought about like, what is the kind of pattern of a novel? What is the story I want to tell, and wrote an outline and just sort of dove in. So I did not really know at all what I was doing. I had some writer friends who I asked for advice. That very first draft was like long and punctuated badly and all sorts of things. But it was really, I think, the practice of like doing it and then revising it and then thinking about it that helped a lot.
Wow. Is it true that you started The Wedding Date as it's called NaNoWriMo National Novel Writing Month work?
Yeah. So
wow.
It's
That's
funny
cool.
because I had been writing, I'd written one novel and kind of tried to write another. And, because I talk about like when I wrote the first book, I kind of start with an outline and I've always started with an outline with like everything I've written, right? I was a history major in college. And so, but then some writers just start with an idea. And I was like, well, I wonder if I can do that. And no, the answer is no, I can't do that. Like, I tried to do it and I wrote like the first half of a book 3 different times and then kind of gave up because I had no idea where I was going. Like I didn't, I just need to like think a lot of stuff through, I think, before I start writing a book. And so I had the idea for The Wedding Date, but I hadn't really committed to myself that I was going to write it. I'd taken a break from writing, and then a friend of NaNoWriMo, like their big month is November, but they also, and I didn't know this at the time, they also have months in April and in July. And so a friend of mine texted me like at the end of March, and said, I'm going to do NaNoWriMo in April with another friend of mine. Do you want to do it with us? And I had kind of thought of this idea that I had. I'd written some stuff down about it, but I hadn't really committed to myself that I was going to write it. And I was like, okay. And so I spent like 2 days,
I love it.
through an outline and making sure I had kind of names for important characters. And then I just sort of dove in. And so I wrote the first 50,000 words that April, and then kept going.
Wow.
And I didn't write as fast for the second half of the book, but then I spent a lot of time editing and kind of fixing other stuff before I sent it out to anyone.
Wow. Well, I do want to share one thing from the chat. One of our members, Molly, she shared her first experience with racism, and she said that she lived in a town where a landlord of an apartment complex started evicting Southeast Asians. And they were, she said, elementary school children. They wrote letters to the paper, but it was her first experience of racism in general. And she remembers writing, why should they be kicked out of their home just because they're different and come from Asia? So thanks for sharing that, Molly.
Yes,
Crazy.
thank you, Molly. Well, Lisa, was there anything else from the chat, or I wanted to circle back when the time is right, because we don't want to let Drew off the hook before we.
Yeah, I know what you're going to ask. And you go ahead and ask that one next.
I don't want to let Drew off the hook without talking about him. But Drew is, well, he's a good guy, but he doesn't see himself as a player, even though his ex-girlfriends do. So book club members, feel free to add your comments in the chat. Do you think he sees himself as a player, or does he just have a different understanding of what a player is?
He definitely has a different understanding of what a player is. Yeah. You just think he has lots of girlfriends.
I know, and there's a sort of an expiration date.
Yes,
2-month rule.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? I've got to tell you, it was so funny. The scene, and we're in spoiler time. So
yeah,
the scene, I think it was Heather's 4th of July party, where everything comes apart, and you can just see it coming, and you're like, Drew, get a clue.
I know. And it's like, I mean, I'm glad he was forthcoming and was like, oh, I used to date her.
Yeah.
He didn't mention he used to date her,
and
like, I dated everyone at that table, but it's all good, you know. That was in the past.
And you know that's going to come out. But I just thought that was so well done. But you're kind of like reading like this.
Yeah. I was like, oh, Drew, you're digging yourself in a hole, Drew. I don't know. Like, okay, I feel like, I don't know, I'm on the fence. Is he a player? Because he's not being dishonest to anyone.
Right.
He's forthcoming about his playerish ways.
Yes.
But so is that really a player? Or is it just a single guy?
Just hadn't found the
Serial
right
monogamist
one.
is what we like to call him.
What was it?
Serial monogamist. Yeah.
Yes, I love that.
Oh, I do. I love that too. Oh, Becky Feet in the chat says next book title is Drew Got a Clue.
Yes, Drew had a little growing up to do.
That's hilarious. Well, I'm looking at the clock to see if we have time for another question, because we definitely want you to talk about what you're working on and what's coming out next. So we want to leave time for that.
It's going by so quickly.
I know. It's
fast.
It's just so amazing, because there's so much I want to talk about. Since we did kind of lightheartedly poke at Drew, I guess we can ask a more serious question about Alexa, because she's carrying around a lot of guilt about her past with her sister. And do you think Well, this is sort of to the book club members too, and Jasmine can comment on this, but do you think she's right or wrong to feel guilty about her behavior?
I think there's a little bit of both, right? I think we all do things especially when we're young, that we regret, and that like was not the best thing to do at the time. But then I think a lot of times it's not as we make a bigger deal out of it in our heads than it actually was. And so I think there's sort of a little bit of both. Like, yeah, she could feel a little bit of guilty, but like she didn't have to make it as big as it was to her. And I think I know a lot of people like that, right? Like there's some small thing that they have done or that someone else did that they kind of think of as a big deal, when really it wasn't, either because of what they thought or it didn't affect other people as much as they thought it did, and they're carrying around a lot of baggage about it.
And it really does fester as time goes by. And the impression I kind of got from the book is that, her sister didn't like it or she didn't appreciate it at the time, but it was not that, mammoth rock that Alexa was carrying around.
Yeah, exactly.
We're always tougher on ourselves.
Yes, exactly.
That's true. And I think exactly, that's totally an example of that. And it really affected her whole life, you know. But on the positive side, it affected her in creating the program to help kids. And so that was a great thing. Yeah. Well, we know, Jasmine, that you only have a few minutes left. So we definitely want to ask you to tell us about your new book coming out on May 3rd, By the Book, and what you might be working on after that.
Advanced copies yesterday.
This
is By the Book. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling with it's being published by Disney Books. They are doing kind of a series of contemporary princess retellings, and so the first one was If the Shoe Fits, which was a Cinderella retelling that came out last summer, and then this one is Beauty and the Beast, and so it's about Isabel, who works in publishing. She gets sent to go try to figure out like what's going on with this guy who was supposed to write a memoir for her boss and like hasn't communicated anything about it. He's like was like a teenage star, was supposed to write a memoir and then kind of disappeared, and then she ends up getting like moving into his house and helping him write this memoir. And so sort of about their relationship and herself, and her relationship with her job. And it comes out May 3rd, so I hope everybody loves it.
And the chat is blowing up.
Yeah.
While we're going to pre-order now.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
yeah,
pre-order now. Go ahead, Lisa.
Wanted to ask you about another project that you are working, or I guess it's already out, but your project with Keke Palmer, the Southern Belle Insults. Can you tell us how you got hooked up with Keke and how that came about?
Yeah, that was really fun to work on. That was a project through Amazon Publishing with Keke. She has these like Instagram skits that are the Southern Belle Insults, and so it was really kind of a series of stories based around those characters, and so that was so fun to work on. We kind of got connected through Amazon and then did some like Zoom calls to see if we worked together well, and we did. And so then we kind of had this like series of conference calls over months, where we kind of talked through the characters and the story and then went back and forth in the stories. But it was so fun, really fun to work with her. And like her ideas were, it was also like one of the reasons I wanted to do it is writing is such a solitary thing. And so it was really nice to be able to collaborate with someone else on something. So I had a lot of fun with that.
It seems like fun, and there's 5 short stories. I listened to the first one and I loved it. Like
Yeah.
it's so good. So, and
And
you can listen to it if you have
I think
Prime.
listening to it is definitely the best way because Kiki
Yeah,
plays all of the characters and she's like so funny and yeah.
it's so funny. So it's a good thing to listen
Yeah.
to if you like audiobook.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. Just to circle back really quick before you go, your new book coming out, By the Book. If someone wants a signed copy or a signed book plate, where can they go?
My local bookstore is East Bay Booksellers, and you can get signed copies of any of my books from them.
Good tip.
If people place an order, because I will go and sign books, but if you want to like personalized one, just say it in the note section and I'll just go to, and they call me and I just go down there and we'll personalize it. And so you can get personalized copies of any of my books there, and I will do signed books of the new one there too. I'm hoping, hopefully by May we'll be able to do like bookstore visits to places other than in our own city. So I'm hoping to be able to do at least a little bit of a book tour then. So let's all keep our fingers crossed. When I have information about that, I will absolutely post it on my social media. Instagram, I'm Jasmine Picks, and Facebook, I'm Jasmine Guillory Writer. So you can find that information there. But yeah, a signed copy you can always get from East Bay Booksellers.
East Bay Booksellers?
Yes.
Okay, great. We got quite a few questions about that.
That's great. That's great. And go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to say, can you share what you're currently reading with us right now?
Oh, well, I just finished the other night a book called The Family Chow. It just came out a few days ago, or maybe last week, I think, maybe 2 weeks ago. You never know, but it's like a literary story about a family, but there's also a mystery. It's about this family of the parents and 3 sons. The parents are Chinese immigrants and they kind of settle in the Midwest and start a restaurant. And then the story is mostly about their 3 sons and kind of what the impacts that their parents' lives have had on them. And then there's a murder, and then we're like trying to figure out who did the murder. It was totally absorbing. I think I read the whole thing in 3 days, and it was a lot of fun to read.
Oh, sounds good. I have to add that to my TBR mountain.
I know. That's been
one. Minor mountains also, yeah.
That's been one side effect of the pandemic and the wonderful content we have with Friends in Fiction and the other authors is our TBR lists are all just
out of control.
Going crazy.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, is there anything you're working on now that you could share with us?
Not quite yet, but hopefully I'll be able to share something soon. Yeah.
Darn. Well, Jasmine,
look that in at the end.
I know, drat. Sometimes we get an advanced scoop. Well, Jasmine, it has been a total pleasure speaking with you tonight. If you wouldn't mind, tell us once again how people can find you on social media before we say goodnight.
On Instagram, I'm Jasmine Picks. On Facebook, I'm Jasmine Guillory Writer. And on Twitter, I'm the best Jasmine. I should have stabilized that at some point in my writing career and made them all the same. I never did because I was not thinking clearly enough when I did everything. But you can always, on my website, it has links to everything. And I try to keep up with like links to pre-order and to order the books and all of that kind of stuff. So you can always find relatively up-to-date stuff on my website too, which is jasmineguillory.com. I should have said that.
Great. We'll put it on the book club page as well. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. It has been amazing. The book club members, the chat has blown up tonight. If you get a chance to go in and look at some of the responses and answer some questions, that would be phenomenal.
Oh, I will try to do that later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's just been such a fun. I feel like we could talk to you for like another hour.
I know.
So many things. But thank you so much for joining us. It's been a delight.
Thank you. And thank you everyone so much. This was so much fun.
Thanks, Jasmine. Good
Bye.
night.
Good night.
Oh, that was so much fun.
It was a dream, right?
I know.
It's so nice when you're a fan of someone and they not only meet your expectations, but exceed them. She was lovely. And although we didn't get to ask her the spicy question, shoot.
Oh my goodness, we totally skipped
That's
over
okay.
Well, I was going to make you do it anyway.
I know. Ah,
That's funny.
that was a lot of fun. And she has so many other things. There's one other thing I wanted to mention. She's involved with a project that's kind of like an anthology, and it's called Black Love Matters. And it's an anthology that celebrates and examines romance and romantic media through the lens of Black writers, readers, cultural commentators, and it's edited by a librarian. Her name is Jessica Pride. And there's probably about 15 people involved with this project, and it's called Black Love Matters. You can see it on her website. I thought that was really cool. She's involved in so much. She has so many things going on.
I know, it's just amazing. And one of the things that I thought was very, very interesting was how this novel started as a NaNoWriMo
Right.
novel. And a lot of people have never heard of that, but it's National Novel Writing Month, and so many people participate. And the goal of it is to write 50,000 words in a month. That's pretty much the goal. Not excellent words, not not completely coherent words, but the goal is to just get words on the paper. And I just think it's so cool that out of that came the wedding date.
I know. And then it was not, not just the wedding date. It's like the wedding date, the proposal, the wedding party, holiday, royal holiday. Then while we were, I don't know, but and then to get your first book, like when you think about it, she's had what, 5 or 6 books? The wedding date just came out in 2018, and that whole series, within 5 years, she's had 6 books, not including all of her other projects that she's been a part of.
That's pretty prolific.
Yeah. And her writing is great. Oh, Arlene in the chat wants to know, what was the spicy question? And then I'm going to ask, Lisa. I will. So we were going to ask her, the question was, last night on Friends and Fiction, Mary Kay Andrews mentioned, when she was talking to Jane Allen, Mary Kay Andrews mentioned that Jasmine Guillory really knows how to write a sex scene. So we were going to ask her how that process was for her, and how does she have such a great balance of tension, build the tension building, because I was telling Brenda last night and she laughed at me. I said, sometimes you read these sex scenes and you're like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. And I was like, but you're reading Jasmine's and you're like, oh my God, like it's so different. You're like, woo, I feel Drew's hand on my knee. Like, what was that breeze? She really gets it. Go her. So it would have been nice to ask her. We didn't get to, but
well, maybe she'll come back.
She'll come. Hopefully we'll have her back for her next book, maybe.
Oh, Barbara in the chat said Darn would like to have heard the answer to that one.
I don't know how we
sorry,
it went by so fast.
I know, it really did. It's unbelievable how fast the time goes, and you think that it's going to be, you worry as a sort of, moderator that there'll be a lapse or something, and it's never that way. There's always so much to talk about because these authors are so talented.
I know. And Irene in the chat said, you ladies are the best. Thank you for getting Jasmine to meet and talk with us. Thank you for joining us. That's so sweet of you to say. Thank you for joining us. And Marilyn says, spice is nice. I'm with you, girlfriend.
That was the first thing I told Lisa because of course I finished the book way before Lisa did. What a surprise. I'm like,
No shock there.
it is spicy.
And I was like, oh, we're all adults. It's not that spicy. Then, like a couple of nights ago, like 2:00 in the morning, I'm texting Brenda. I'm like, my, this is spicy. So now that you guys have all read The Wedding Date, you have to read The Proposal, and you really get to know my book boyfriend, Carlos. You meet him in The Wedding Date, but you get to know him in The Proposal, and that's the guy.
I have to read The Proposal just for that reason.
Oh my gosh, he loves to cook.
Boyfriend.
I love a man who likes to cook, right? Carlos, you want to talk about food? She talks about tacos in The Wedding Date. In The Proposal, I was like salivating over tacos and food all the time. So I would love a Jasmine Guillory cookbook. Just saying. Amber in the chat says, yes, they're all so good. She said book 3 is amazing too. Book 3 is, let me see. I think that one's The Wedding Party. Am I right?
I think so too.
Yes, The Wedding Party.
Oh, Barbara says it's one of those you don't read in public.
Yeah, you don't want to be reading in public going, oh. Have somebody walk in on you.
That's funny.
Oh, thank you guys for staying late. And I'm glad that, this was our first Thursday night book club live, because we usually always do Monday nights. And thank you guys for showing up on a night. I know a lot of people usually would be hanging out with Wade, and they chose to hang out with us. So we appreciate that.
We do. And I also definitely want to mention next month's book discussion, because it's going to be another awesome one. And that's with Christina Lauren on March 17th to discuss the soulmate equation. I know
I'm
we're all
excited.
looking forward to that.
I love Christina Lauren. If you are a fan of their books, their book called Love in Other Words is one of my favorite books ever. So good. Yeah.
Oh, and I love The Unhoneymooners. I think that's what it was called.
Oh yes, I think I have. I have so many of their books. Autobiography is their YA book, and it's spelled like autobiography. That is one of the most beautiful covers. I'll have them all out when we talk to them, and I'm going to share a personal story with them.
Okay. Well, that's something
we met. I have a big, it'll be fun.
Well, that is something for us to look forward to next time, Lisa, as we close out tonight. Lisa's personal
One more
story.
thing. Oh, yep. I have a nice story to share. One more thing I want to mention. This time tomorrow, Brenda, we will be together. So if any of you are watching going to be in Savannah, get ready for some PB&J sightings, because we're going to be at the Savannah Book Festival. And I'm going to make this one get into some trouble. So look out for our lives and posts and
mostly Lisa's lives.
I haven't packed, y'all. I have not done a thing. Yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing all night. So, but yes, the Savannah Book Festival is this weekend. Kristen has a panel on Saturday at 11:30. And then the Friends in Fiction is the closing keynote at 2:00 on Sunday, and we will be at both. So come say hi if you're there. And thank you for hanging out with us and sticking around for a little after show.
Yeah, thanks so much. See you next time, and have a great evening. Happy reading,
everyone.
Good night.